Lucas. Welcome to Ingredients to Happiness.
It's good to be with you. I'm excited to learn more about happiness and where I find it already.
Yeah, well, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
You're just getting started. I think I even saw inauguration balloons on the office floor still, and you still got some paintings to hang up in the office.
We've got a lot of stuff to do. I mean, I'll tell you this, like when I went to college, I never put anything on my walls, I think any of the 4 years. So
really?
I hope I don't do that with these 4 years. Hopefully at least there's a flag in the corner.
That's important too, absolutely.
That's right.
So you have a really, really interesting story. I mean, Kansas City through and through, went away for a bit, did some studying. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so born and raised in Kansas City. Actually lived in Hutchinson, Kansas for maybe about 4 years. If you haven't been, home to the State Fair of Kansas.
Cosmosphere.
Right, the Cosmosphere, some salt mines. If you're rich, golf courses. So was down there maybe until about age 8. Moved back to Kansas City and lived a life of some struggle. We were homeless sometimes. Certainly knew what it was like, not having access to a car. We'd catch the bus. I'm the youngest of 3. And raised by a single mom. And so, it was kind of hard work, some good opportunities. I got a scholarship to the school that the wizard of the technology here he went there too, just some years later than I did.
Just a few. Good job, George.
Yeah, that then sends me on a path to college in St. Louis, Washington University. Law school was at Cornell. And then when I was there, and I'll wrap my story soon, but I got kind of involved in some social justice causes. Started teaching in a maximum security prison in upstate New York, which was fascinating.
Interesting.
If you want to know what it looks like, just think of the Shawshank Redemption. And the prison looked just like it and felt just like it, except that Brooks wasn't here or whatever from the movie, if you remember the
I grew up in Leavenworth, Kansas, so...
Oh, you know prisons well.
Prisons, yeah. Technically Lansing.
Exactly, absolutely. I have volunteered at Lansing. I taught a constitutional law class there for a while. So did that, came back to Kansas City after school. The people were telling me, oh my gosh, you should go to Washington or New York. There was just something about this community I liked. It's accessible. You can get an interview in the mayor's office, You can do all types of stuff. You can meet the owner of Donatology, which I'm like, man.
Now we're talking.
But, and then I was doing the prison volunteering, practicing law, and kind of getting by. A few years into that, KU Law School calls me and says, would you ever be interested in being a law professor? I remember when they said that, I said, I'm not 70 years old, I didn't go to Yale, and I don't have white hair, so how am I qualified to be a law professor? And they said, well, we'll slip on those standards a little, but did that for a number of years, and then kind of, I'm not good
Then you don't have to bill hours that
No,
way.
thank God, right? I'm not big on quitting jobs, I just add them. So then, while on, you never know when you're going to...
Never know.
Exactly, you may need to survive on it. And that was about it, then city council, and then ultimately that leads me to running for mayor.
Incredible. There's a lot of issues that you're passionate about, and a lot in the social justice realm. And I think what dominates a lot of the headlines in Kansas City is the safety. And you mentioned that's going to be one of your top priorities as mayor. And happiness, obviously, people want to feel safe. So, I mean, are you able to expand a little bit upon
absolutely.
The safety of the city and your views on that?
Yeah, I mean, there really is nothing more important than it. I mean, I'm starting this interview a good chunk of time late because I was actually meeting with some city council people and wanted to get a deal done on an ordinance I have tomorrow relating to banning the possession of handguns for minors, right? Because a lot of people, not unlike if you start smoking at 15 or start drinking at 14 or 15, sometimes that leads to a whole life of doing it much longer. And what we need to realize these days is that's for a lot of kids, if somebody hands you a gun at 13 or 14, which happens in our city every day, then you kind of institutionalize this life of, I need this to be hard or to have protection. And I want to make sure that we're telling folks there's a different way to do things.
Sure.
And so, that's kind of just one sign of how much I think I care and how important it is. In terms of what it relates to happiness, you're absolutely right that when we think about core quality of life, one of the greatest advantages I had when I went to private school was that I would get like 7 hours a day to not worry. And I would go back home to my neighborhood sometimes, and I would see that, kids went back to being worried about literally everything. Will you live the next day? Will you?
And kids shouldn't have to worry about
exactly.
those things.
Do you have food? Do you have shelter? And so that's why I think this is just one core part of it. And that's something that I think is a basic of a city. We can have all the cool stuff in the world.
Sure.
But if, a 13-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 5-year-old is used to gunshots in their neighborhood every night, that is a big impediment to happiness long term.
So, I mean, you have to start by raising more funds for public safety initiatives and programs. I mean, is that where we're going to get started?
I think, yes, there are a ton of different areas. One is really just teaching people to value their lives and their opportunities. And I say this as somebody who came from some struggle, but it's for me, it's about how do I get to that 14, 15-year-old who's like, man, nothing's ahead for me. And maybe we get them an internship with you or a job with you or a job here at City Hall. And we just say, look, you can be any of these positions. We're not, I say this not to like denigrate ourselves. We're not special, unique people built with some great brilliance, right?
Yeah.
We're guys who had ideas, right?
Yep.
And I think the best thing we can do is to tell somebody anywhere in our city, in our region, our country, look, there are great opportunities you don't even know about yet. But importantly, always believe in yourself, believe that you're worthwhile, that you'll be around tomorrow. And that's something we run into challenges with sometimes.
So how do you balance the emotional and logical approach? Because it's got to get to you reading the paper or watching the news in the morning, seeing, another one of our citizens was involved in some sort of crime. So, I mean, that's really emotional. And then, you have to deal with the logical side too of, finding real life solutions. How do you approach that from like a mental and emotional perspective?
It's hard. One of probably the most challenging things, talk about one of the hardest parts of running a business or running a city or anything like that is balancing happiness with disappointing moments.
Yes.
I got inaugurated on Thursday, August 1st. Great day. Lots of people there. It was a huge crowd, probably one of the biggest inauguration crowds in years, right? And that evening, I went off I stayed at somebody's house to the KC Tenants program to study affordable housing. Mm-hmm. The next night, actually that night, somebody's murdered walking home after catching the bus. The next night, a young woman is shot and killed randomly in the crossroads. The next night, and it was incident after incident, every story being so heartbreaking. And I think the way that I balance it's multifaceted. One, it is realizing that we're all here for a reason, that we're here to actually make that change. Sometimes when tragedy, it makes you work really hard to avoid it.
Yeah, it's what drives you.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it's getting you to say, or gets me to say usually, my God, hugging the father of a slain child, it tells me I never want to see this again. So how can I make all of that go away? And I know I can in a second, but it's what keeps me going when people are saying, that's not the right approach, or that won't work. It's us just saying, you know what, we need to, because I believe we can be better than I think what the statistics are showing us right now in our community.
Absolutely. And something that's really struck out to me too, my mother works in my business and she's been a supporter since day one, and she means a lot to me. I was just curious, you've spoken a lot about, the sacrifices your mom has made for you. Do you have any comments on, the happiness and what she's instilled in you?
Yeah, she is one of the happier people of all time. And it's not coming from challenge, right? But
yeah, isn't it funny how that works out?
It is great, and it's just this amazing perspective. And it's why I try to sit back sometimes and just say, wow, look at the opportunities I have. Mm-hmm. When I was a kid in Hutch, I always, and these are the types of dreams she would instill in me, and they're not big. My dream was to one day go to the state capitol, so go to Topeka at night, so I could see the Capitol dome, lit up. I'm like, how lame is that, right? But at the same time, it was this.
Really
it was this thing. Or like, I really got into maps for a while. I would always be excited about getting a brand new road atlas at like the local Walmart every year.
Yeah.
It's things like that. It's recognizing and enjoying so many of really the positive things that happen for you each day. And my mother absolutely instilled that in me, because now, when I have that positive conversation with someone, when they, after a day of lots of people saying you did this wrong, or all these bad things happened this weekend, nobody recognizes. And I hope everybody listening does realize, like, just saying something nice to someone makes such a difference. And so I try to do that with people. I was taught to do that growing up, and I hope more people do that.
I mean, I think that was exemplified. You ran a very positive campaign, and that's, I don't want to say it's rare, but I mean, it seems to be, further and further, going further and further away in today's day and age.
The crazy thing with that is too that there was a certain point where everybody was saying, "Oh, are you going to hit back on some negative ads and all of that?" And they're trying to move you in the polls and all of that. And I said, you know what? This is not who I am. And I don't say this to make some news, make this like a Meet the Press type podcast. I don't think that was who my opponent in the general was either, and that's why the attacks. I was in a few debates with her, and she tried to hit these attacks. I'm like, that's not you. Right? We're largely positive people, and I think that shows. And I think that helped create the 17-point margin that I won by, because I think people kind of said, well, you know what? I like that he's talking about what he's trying to do. He's talking about what he cares about. He's talking about his excitement for the future of the city and his energy, and I think that's what we need.
Absolutely. Fun question. I've read that pretty big Chiefs fan.
Oh, huge.
And analytics, like, you take notes? Is that true?
I do. This started when I was in middle school, because I was real cool then. I thought actually I would be like the next great sports writer. I was like, man, newspapers are the future.
Oh, yeah.
And so, at the time, Jason Whitlock was writing for the Star, Joe Posnanski. So, like, there was this great sports page. And so I would actually write my own, like, story. Like, I was the Chiefs beat writer or something.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it would be like, oh man, and I still remember, it's like Brett Favre and the Packers came in and, beat Steve Bono and the Chiefs, and it would be all this great summarizing of it. But, it was fun. I've left my writing a bit, but I still usually am at every Chiefs home game. If you want to know a time I'm not free for a meeting, it is during the Chiefs game.
Yeah, same.
I'm just like, it's like, nah, dude, not happening. And I don't know, I said this once, and actually when I was breaking up with a girl, and it probably wasn't the nicest thing to say, but, I was like, because I think we were at that point where we were unhappy in the relationship, both of us. And I was like, yeah, you're not happy with this. And then I'm like, and my metric was, I'm like, you know what I'd rather be doing right now? I'd rather just be sitting watching a Chiefs game, chilling out, and not talking. And I'm like, well, that's not good for our relationship.
That's probably not.
But it's
most of them, at least.
Right. But it was just great for me knowing, you know what? Always know where your happiness metric is, where you feel fulfilled. And it isn't a thing of, some people, particularly in the era of social media, the era which is like a man of his age would be like, this has all been the era of social media. But nevertheless, right, it's not who has the coolest pictures climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, or whose vacation is cooler, whose baby is the cutest, although we do so much of that these days. It really is like that core of, hey, how am I feeling? And I feel great sitting on my couch watching a Chiefs away game where hopefully we're winning.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your hot take on the Chiefs this year? We had James Arkell on the podcast.
Yeah.
And he was trying to shy away a little bit from talking about the Chiefs, so we focused on the Mavericks a lot. But
there you go. Well, here's the thing. So, I mean, so offense, lights out. Great. Good story. Although the running game, I'm interested to see. The preseason, I think we've seen some good promise.
Yeah.
McCole Hardman, right? All that sort of stuff. But defense, I think, continues to be a question. I mean, looking at some of these early quarters in the preseason, I know it doesn't really matter. I just want to make sure that we're not seeing what we saw against New England, where, Tom Brady could march down the field on repeated drives in the second half and overtime of the AFC Championship game. I mean, so I'm excited, as always, but I want to look at some early tests. So.
And the reason I bring all this up, because towns really rally around sports franchises. We look what happened with the Royals when they won the World Series. I don't know, it just took over the town. Charlie Hustle T-shirts everywhere. Chase and Holly, they're going to be on the podcast. And I don't know, just that sense of pride. And I've had some business people tell me that if the Chiefs were able to pull off something like that, that it would be up to a 14x effect for whatever the Royals cost.
Good Lord. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, when you look at the core ratings, right, for Chiefs, I mean, it's amazing. 70% of televisions are tuned into a Chiefs game. I mean, that's astonishing.
I mean, what is it? Is it an escape? I mean,
yeah, and I think it is. It's an escape, but the cool thing about sports is that it's like a shared conversation too. You know, one of the things that I think I neglected to realize when I got inaugurated is that a lot of people thought it was cool. A lot more people than I would have thought, because they're like, all right, cool, yeah, we've got a new mayor. How exciting.
Yeah.
You know, and I foolishly thought, oh, well, do they agree with my platform on potholes? Or they don't care. They're just kind of like, you know, hey,
this is exciting.
This is exciting. We're excited for our city. We're excited for renewal. And sports does that, you know, on a totally different level, much more significant one in some ways. That, you know, people really want to make things work. I'll go too in depth in politics and say I still remember, and it lasted for about 2 minutes, that after our current president was inaugurated, people for like 2 minutes tried to say, well, maybe some of the themes from before won't continue, and maybe there could be unifying around infrastructure, around some of these other things.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's what we fail to do in politics a lot, because you win elections, or people think you win elections on the divisions instead of the unifications. And that's why really sports and puppies and a few other things or donuts are kind of our last great areas where people are like, yeah, I can be happy. Whereas I would like to see, and frankly, this is what I want to do as mayor, you know, do a lot more of the, how can we be like shared in joy? I'm a Democrat. The governor of Missouri is a Republican. And we've had a chance to catch up a few different times because we've talked about the stuff that we care about together. And I'd like to see a lot more of that.
I watched your inauguration, and there were several previous mayors there. You've got to talk, obviously, with Sly James, and did any of those previous mayors give you any words of wisdom or advice?
Yeah, all of them did. It's like, I never knew my father growing up, but I got to meet enough fathers along the way to know that a senior man loves to give advice, right?
Sure.
And just say, young man, let me tell you something. So there was that. We had one previous female mayor who also gave very good advice, Kay Barnes.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody did. I mean, for the most part, except for Mark Funkhauser, with whom I had an interesting conversation.
Okay.
Everybody was pretty positive about, ever need anything, call me. They've given different ideas on, what it's most important to do first, that sort of stuff. But, they did. And I recognize that I get to be in this very cool club. I mean, if you had told my mom when I was born, or certainly even me younger, that I'd be mayor of Kansas City one day, I could be like Dick Berkeley, or something like that. She would have been like, no, right? Because that's something that other people do. And so it's been cool. And from the jump, all of them were nice, reached out, gave me some great advice.
That's awesome.
Frankly, a lot of other elected officials. I had a chat with Mayor Pete, Senator Cory Booker, former Congressman Beto O'Rourke, and a lot of others who've given some great advice. But I mentioned Cory Booker and Pete Buttigieg because they're both, Pete is a mayor now, Cory Booker was a mayor before, and so it's been nice getting that type of advice from around the country.
And then also, Charisse David is a friend.
Oh, yeah, actually, the funny thing is, if you wonder how important you are, I am missing an event with Charisse right now.
Oh my goodness.
Which is fun.
Hey, that makes me feel bad.
I saw her yesterday, and so I assume it'll work out. It's out in Overland Park, so
maybe we can get her on the podcast.
Yeah, hey, that'll be the exchange, right? For being late, I can get Charisse on. You talk about a positive person. I don't care about your politics really. Like I'm cool with Kevin Yoder. He's a good guy. He was actually in this office the other day giving me advice, and he's a pretty positive guy too. But Charisse, I still remember when she announced she was running. I went to law school with her, right? And so we've known each other for since 2008 and 2007. And I remember when she said she was running, I was like, that's cool. Are you supported by some big institutional group or anything like that? She's like, no, I just have these great opportunities in life, and by great opportunities, I mean opportunities she made, working her way through Johnson County Community College, right? Graduating from UMKC, working all the while, getting herself to Cornell Law School. it was really cool just letting her know, but I believe in myself and I believe in making a difference. And we
I have to say, a running kind of joke in our group is when that attack ad ran against her about her being an MMA fighter, we all said that would just make us want to vote for her more. Right. Like, what were they trying to do here?
Right. I mean, it goes to show you just how silly negative campaigning is. And
it's bizarre.
Right. And it's like, nobody's going to do it, but I would just love in the next presidential race. I mean, I'll give you an example. 2016, a lot of Hillary Clinton's ads were kind of based on Donald Trump is terrified.
Sure.
Right? And of course the Trump side did that too. And it's like, that wasn't effective. Imagine if, like, in the next race, somebody, whatever side, says, I'm just a positive person who has this view of America, right? I mean, that was, frankly, I think Obama 08. That was Reagan 1980. I'm getting, I wasn't alive for Reagan 80, but I mean,
sure.
but that's kind of the ethos. Frankly, Bill Clinton in 1992, a lot of our successful presidents were able to do that sort of thing of, this is about me, something positive, building something. Bill Clinton was a bridge to the 21st century. Ronald Reagan was like Morning in America, right? Barack Obama is change you can believe in. Donald Trump's Make America Great Again. But nevertheless, it's this sort of thing of really how you can actually message positively.
It's huge.
Is key.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And I mean, an example of that, my dad loved Ronald Reagan. Yeah. But he also loved Barack Obama.
Yeah, that is
like it's really interesting, and I think you can connect with people if you go on the positive happiness side. So what's a typical day look like for you? I see that there's you already got your folder for tomorrow over there. So I mean, and your folder today was just absolutely full too.
Yeah.
So.
It's a real story. I usually wake up. I'm having trouble sleeping, but anybody who's a parent of a newborn knows that. My newborn is just 150 years old in a city.
That's funny. That's good.
Still pretty cranky and can't sleep through the night. So I usually wake up probably 5, respond to emails for a little while. I have a police detail now.
Yeah, I know. We had to go through a lot of security to get in here.
So they drive me around, and so I
pretty cool.
Yeah, so I usually get picked up at 6:45 a.m. I go to the gym at Kansas City Police Department headquarters. The reason is because I used to run up and down the Paseo, and they would follow me in a police SUV with just flashing lights. So I'm like running. If you ever want to feel super slow, have a gigantic SUV and 2 police officers sitting there with flashing lights, just
And it just looks like you're running from the police too. I mean, like there's
So I finally said, fine, I'll do the treadmill. So I usually do that. First meeting's usually about 8 o'clock. Hammered with meetings, so a chunk of time. Always a kind of a lunch meeting, more afternoon stuff, and then finally evening. I usually like to do something like this. Late afternoon, which is actually 4 o'clock hours, usually kind of a softer time, and then 5 to 7:30 or 8. I'm usually in neighborhood meetings and hearing about what people are concerned with. And
that's great.
You repeat and do it again. What
do you do for fun? How do you relax?
I don't enough lately, but before I'm terrible at golf, but I was trying to get into that game.
Yeah. We'll have to go play golf.
We should.
I coached high school golf for 8 years. I've seen a lot of bad golf.
Oh, I'm sure you have.
And now, usually it's just my bad.
Yeah. I mean, I am always good to be at a random municipal course.
Yeah,
I tend to,
sure thing.
Tend to play a lot of those. And so there's that. I like to travel. I don't nearly as much as I used to, but I've been to Copenhagen 3 times, which is a weird fact I don't share much because voters will be like, what an elitist. But you want to talk about a happy place. I mean, Scandinavia. Good.
We just got back from Iceland,
right.
George went to Iceland this year too. It's just
right. I mean, it is.
I get it.
And so the reason I keep going back, talk about an interesting story. A friend of mine from high school, and his life was had some similarities to mine. His dad died when he was a little younger. They didn't have much money growing up because dad was a musician, all that sort of stuff. Grew up on the east side of Kansas City like I did. He dropped out of college at Mizzou. And I still remember being like, good God, what are you doing, man? Came back to Kansas City, got a job at Winstead's for a while. Then gets a job at the American Restaurant. For those who don't know, it was a fine restaurant in our city, outstanding. gets in with a pastry chef who then is moving to the French Laundry in California. I know. And so then he's like an assistant pastry chef there,
Wow.
which is this outstanding restaurant there. Moves to Per Se in New York, which is a sister restaurant.
Yep.
And then eventually, after like rising the ranks of these elite restaurants where us regular Joe Schmoes can't get in usually, you know, they say if you really want to make it, become a pastry chef in Copenhagen. All the while, this guy doesn't make enough to ever live in any place that he actually had lived in.
Yeah.
But he meets a woman while he's in Copenhagen, and she's a very nice woman, a scientist actually. And he says, yeah, I think I'm going to make this my thing. And I remember being like, dude, this is the craziest thing since you dropped out of college. Like, what do you do? You don't.
So he just settles down in Copenhagen.
You don't know the language, you don't know. But he's like, but I love it here, right? And a
Yeah.
part of it was he's deep in the food industry scene,
Sure.
right? I mean, frankly, there's a great quality of life there, you know, and even though it's gray and cold for a solid half to 70% of the year, it was just this place that was really chill and happy. And that's why I've been now 3 times.
Does he like rub in their government compared to our government? I can only imagine.
I mean, yeah.
Free healthcare.
Right, healthcare. His wife, they've now had 2 children, 11-month maternity leave.
Wow.
Like, my God, that is cool. And it has a great impact.
Sure.
And I mean, and my favorite thing about being there, I mean, you talk about what I like doing. I'm a weirdo who loves staring at bodies of water, probably because I'm from Middle America.
yeah, makes sense.
And like, I love nothing more. I'll sit there, and I forget the river that runs through Copenhagen, but it's your classic old European city that has this beautiful river that's channeled and that sort of thing. And I just love sitting there and watching kind of the activity there and all of that. And you know, I've appreciated that sort of tourism. I also I get to New York City a decent amount. The craziest thing I do there is that I actually go kayak all the time in the Hudson River.
Really?
Yeah, you should do it. Because if
like that's the thing? Like
that is a thing. It is a very cool thing. And like you see the bustle of the city right next to you.
Yeah.
And you're just on the waves of the Hudson, which, believe it or not, it's not polluted anymore or anything.
That was my first thought. Are you just like, are you going to pick up trash? Or are you doing that? Like, well, cool. So looking forward for Kansas City, you know, what are your plans? I know we touched a little bit on the violence, and I hate to you know, start off with that and just dive deep.
Hey, it's an important issue. I mean, in terms of plans, it's a few. One, I talked about this a lot, is housing. How do we get more workforce? How do we get more affordable housing? How do we get, you know, probably one of the things that holds us back right now is we've got so many interesting neighborhoods in Kansas City, but, you know, we've seen underinvestment for years. We've seen, you know, more vacancies, that sort of thing. You know, if you go to other cities in America, go to U Street in Washington, or heck, some parts of, certainly much of the New York area now. I'm not trying to gentrify everything, but what I'm trying to say is, like, how do we actually get people to reinvest in those neighborhoods? And so I think a big part of it is actually making sure we're providing more funding for rehab of housing, making sure we have more housing that's accessible for your teachers, for your chef, for all these folks, so that they can afford to live in a good spot in Kansas City, Missouri, because a lot of people want to stay in the city and have that opportunity.
So is part of that redefining the word blight?
Yes.
And determining what's blighted property?
Yeah.
Because, you know, I've seen the news. I mean, the plaza.
The Intercontinental Hotel on the plaza is blighted and all. Yeah, I mean, it's silly. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it is. And it's changing our priorities.
Okay.
And I always try to say, it's not that my predecessors were bad. It's just that things are different.
Sure.
They had
their hands full with other
exactly.
things.
In the 1990s, when Mayor Kay Barnes was mayor of our city, I don't know if you're from here or not.
I am,
But, yeah, downtown, like you had the edge of hell, basically a block up the street. By the way, that's a haunted house.
Yep.
A block up the street, although downtown seemed like it, from where the Sprint Center is now. I mean, just nothing but... Nothing. Empty parking lots. You could see a tumbleweed go across. I mean, it was the disaster town. And I commend her because she was like, it needs to look different. And a big part of that was we need to build more condos. We need to get more life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was an answer to the challenge of 1999. I'm fortunate enough to live, as does she, in 2019, but I'm mayor now. And so the question is, how do we address the 2019 challenge? And that is a safer city, a more walkable city, one with more economic development equitably throughout different parts of Kansas City.
And you're going to make busing free, right?
Oh,
hopefully.
yes.
Yeah.
Because it's crazy talk to me. We have a $57 million budget for the KCATA, our bus company.
Wow.
Right? Free buses would cost about $7 million. So my jam is, let's figure out how the heck to do it, right? I mean, it's just something that to me makes sense. When you talk about the fact that there are so many people that are just getting by, if you put $1,500 back into their pocketbook every year, what difference does that make? And also, if you make it easier to ride the bus, how many people that are saying, you know what, I want to get from 47th and Main to 31st and Main, and instead of driving, parking, worrying, all that sort of stuff, I can just hop on a bus, and they're coming every 10 minutes. I mean, that's the sort of thing that's exciting for me.
I mean, we have multiple employees that ride the bus to work, and that'll be a big deal.
Absolutely.
Well, cool. So, any imparting words of wisdom on happiness for our listeners as we close here? How can someone that might face a tough circumstance be able to look on the bright side and get through whatever they're going through?
Yeah.
Kind of see the light.
A few things. Man, this is where you get deep. Now I'm showing, I guess.
This was just a way for me to have free therapy, I guess.
Right. It's a little showing my age, but when I was younger, right, there'd be the Barbara Walters interview, and she'd get Burt Reynolds to cry or something. Like, oh my God, how did she do it? First of all, always know that there's somebody who cares about you. It might be your wife, it might be George, it might be...
I'll take it.
Anyone under the sun. But I think so often people get beat down, think they're alone, think they've failed tremendously in something or another that defines them. And I think what's important is us recognizing that there's more than that. On my darkest days, I've had several, it's knowing that, heck, there's still a reason why you're around, why you're doing what you're doing, and there's still people who care about you. I think in terms of something actually Charisse and I talked about yesterday, it's believing in yourself beyond what people say. Somebody probably told you, oh my God, the zoning would be terrible for donatology, it can't work, parking doesn't work out, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I know people told me, you're too young to be mayor, you need to serve more time, you need to do this, that, or the other, you don't have the right groups behind you. And it's just me saying, what the heck, I want to make a difference in my hometown. And if I fail, I fail, but I'm sure as heck going to try my best. And so happiness isn't necessarily succeeding in it, it is really the pursuit. I use one example lately. I ran track in Barstow where I went to school. And I qualified for state track and field, right? So I qualified for the state meet. I'm in Jefferson City. And I came in last place. And I still had a blast every step of the way.
I did track too, and I was always in last.
Right.
Makes me feel better.
Right. I mean, last place in state, but I still remember finishing and looking and being like, oh my God, I'm at the state track and field competition. At that point in my life, probably the biggest thing I thought I would ever do. And, I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And so it's not so much just the success, it's challenging yourself, finishing it, carrying it through, but making sure that, you're living by your own goals, not necessarily letting society or anyone else tear your goals down.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Mayor Lucas, thanks for your time. Best of luck to you. I know you got your challenges ahead, but I think you're gonna succeed.
Thank you so much. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
We'll see you.
Hey everyone, if you liked what you saw, please hit the subscribe button. Also, you can find us on social media in the links below. Thank you.